And we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Bearded Men of Real Estate Show. I'm Ray. Say hi, Dan.
Hi, Green Bean Matt.
What? Hello to Green Bean Matt, the producer Matt, who is in Clubhouse right now. So we are broadcasting live, which some of you guys are watching us on YouTube. You may be watching us on the Facebook. Just so you know, StreamYard and Facebook have not been playing well nicely. So you may have to jump over to the YouTube stream, which we should really drop in the contributors group, by the way, the link to that stream.
Yeah, just go over to YouTube. It'll be fine.
Yeah, you should probably go to YouTube. So because it's been a more consistent stream lately, StreamYard and Facebook have been dropping that. Or you could join us on Clubhouse. Well, you will see Green Bean Matt, who is the show's producer, helping to moderate the comments. And you can join the show live and talk live to us. Who was it? Julie Moon, who was listening, saying that she was shouting in her car show.
Yeah.
And now she gets to shout live. So hopefully she
gets to comment live on YouTube, shout live on Clubhouse, and then ignore Facebook. Yeah, she's got it all covered.
She did all three.
Yeah.
Mario Flores joins us from YouTube, says, "What up, Dan and Ray?" Hey, and if you are joining us live on Facebook or YouTube, you can comment, and then we can display your comments, and we can talk about you, or we can talk about your comment. One of the two. We have a ton of good news today. Well, I don't know if all of it's good news, but it's like. There's a lot of news. If you're a news show, there's a lot to talk about today.
It's good news.
Yeah.
It's not good news always, but it's good news.
Right. It's like, yes. This is a thick with two C's, thick with two C's news show here on Cinco de Mayo. So happy Cinco de Mayo, everyone. I hope you
By the way, the only bearded real estate news show that we know of. We're the only one. We might even be the only real estate news show. We're it. We're the one. So you found us. Good job and thank you.
Actually, the broke agent said that they had started a real estate news show and they discontinued it because it was hard. It's like, yeah, I could have told you that, bro.
Yeah, they did like what, 5 episodes or something.
It was a good show, though. It was good.
I thought it was pretty good. I was actually jealous because they're both really good to look at and really personable. And I'm like, this sucks.
Production. Yeah.
Yeah. And then stopped after a month, and we've been doing this for 4 years. 4 years.
4 years. D. Jones, she does this from Facebook. She says, "Hey, Beers, hello. All right, let me give a brief summary of some of the news stories that we're going to be talking about today. Soaring lumber prices. How much and you can go ahead and chime in the comments, drop a note. How much do you think lumber prices are adding to the price of a home? No Googling allowed."
I already know the answer, so I want to answer. It's at least $5. At least $5.
Over $5. All right, Biden, he has a plan for the inherited real estate that we talked about 2 weeks ago, and there's now some economists and people coming out about that, saying that may not do exactly what he wants it to do. So Dan's going to talk about that. The rates are up, applications are down, but are those refi applications or home purchase applications, or is it both? Zillow versus REX. We got the Zillow clap back, the legal response from the REX lawsuit versus Zillow. We'll get into some of those details. Religion is no safe harbor for hate speech. This was also a huge topic of conversation on the show. I think we actually took up 45 minutes of one of the shows to talk about this issue. It's 10-9 in the, I can't remember what they call it, standards, proposals, whatever. Anyway, we're going to go into the details about that because they have some issues that came up that they used to set precedents and rules. And we're going to talk about one of those in particular. The COVID recovery. Oh, I shouldn't have said the C word. The Rona recovery. It has a better ring to it anyway because the alliteration. The Rona recovery has a K shape. We talked about old Gary's K shape, Gary Keller, and we'll talk about what that means and why, and what in the world is happening with Compass. They're in another lawsuit. Are these things like real or what's going on? I'd love for some Compass agents to chime in about it. And I've got great friends who are Compass agents, and I think it's a great company, but I don't know what's going on. And we have some breaking news. I should put this at the. Did you type this? Breaking news. Is that anywhere? Yeah. So the breaking news is going to be the last. It just came out. We haven't even read the article yet. We'll cover it live and read it with you guys. But the eviction moratorium has been overturned.
Has been stricken down.
Yeah, stricken. We're all strickeneth today with the news. We're shooketh with the stricken.
Oh, that's a lot of Pete. That's a lot of K's. You got to be careful, buddy.
Yeah. Pete Thorpe says Corona recovery with a K on all of it. That's good.
Also known as May the 6th. Corona recovery, get it?
There you go. Yeah. Cinco de seis.
Revenge of the Sixth.
Revenge of the Sixth. That's good. Why is that a thing? That should be a thing.
It's a thing.
And happy May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. To those of you who celebrated yesterday. Eugene says shalom, guys. Hey, Jeannie Kelly says hello. And then Matt Clanton says he's changed his name to Jolly Green Giant. That's good. All right, Dan, before we get into this, all these news articles, because we got a whole bunch to cover, not much time to do it. So we're going to be going at a pretty quick clip. Could you tell people pretty quickly what this show is actually all about?
You know what? I'd love to. Now, when Ray and I met 4 or 5 years ago here on the interwebs, I'm obviously a bearded man, and I had an idea for a show called the Bearded Men of Real Estate Show. But when I met Ray, I noticed something very interesting about him.
Really, Dan? What's that?
He hates spiders.
I'm not a fan. That is true. I had a friend that had one of those tarantulas.
Wait, is that really true?
Yeah. I had a friend that had one of those tarantulas, and he would play. I would go to his house, play video games, and I would move that stuff. Get that out of the room if you want me in there. I don't like them. I'll kill them, but I don't like them.
Interesting. So no, I didn't know that. I just like to make up stuff about Ray every week, and I just learned something new.
I wouldn't call it a phobia, but it's not a preference.
So okay, let me ask this question. I know people hate the banter, right? They hate the banter. So
I hate banter.
Two common phobias. Which would you prefer? To be up very high on a skinny ledge, or face a tarantula?
Face a tarantula. Because
okay.
I wouldn't think that I would die as fast. Facing a tarantula, I can fight. I can't fight a fall.
Right, you can't fly, right?
No, that's not gonna happen.
Interesting. Okay, but obviously I noticed he's a beautifully bearded man, but he also had a format for a show. It's the same layout we use today, but I also noticed that he loves to give value up front. It's not only his clients, but also to just humans in general. So the show is about being more as an agent, but also being more as a human.
That's right. And one of the things that we believe makes us more is understanding what in the world is going on in the economy and with real estate, so that we can clearly communicate that with our clients and help them make some of the largest investment decisions of their entire lives. So knowing like what's happening with lumber prices when you're consulting someone who's thinking about selling their house and then building construction, we may want to reevaluate that. Last week we were seeing that the average price in new construction was below the average resale value. What does that actually mean? Does that mean you can get a better deal? No. So knowing that kind of stuff really is going to help you to consult with your clients so they can get a better idea. And I've got some great feedback from the show this week, which I really appreciate. I got a lot of texts and DMs of people saying, man, I'm glad I spent that hour with you guys, because now I just have a context of what's happening in the economy, what's going on in the news, and a better understanding. We also had an economist join the show last week, which was amazing.
Dude, that was intense. It was so, and he's a guy. He's a columnist for Housing Wire, and we've read his articles on the show, and then he jumped in through Clubhouse, which you can do too right now.
Yep, very cool. All right, Dan, you ready to get into these things?
Absolutely.
Mario Flores says, bugs. I hate bugs and rats. I can't do it.
Wait. Before we get into the show, are they a protected class? Can we hate them?
Well, spiders. Yeah, you can hate
spiders. Are okay. We know that, but bugs and rats. I mean, I don't know.
If it's a religious thing. Would you rather fight a
10-foot
tarantula or 100-foot one? Wait. Would you rather fight one 10-foot tall tarantula or 100 1-foot tall tarantula? I would say 1 10-foot tall.
I would say 1 10-foot as well, because a foot tall tarantula is giant tarantula, and you got to fight 100 of them.
I learned from the video games years ago that it's easy to fight one boss than a whole bunch of little things that are coming around you. All right. Anyway,
let's go. Yeah, like you don't want to fight, 150 or one like in shape man or 12 5-year-olds. So they're just gonna keep coming.
Yeah. They'll keep respawning.
Yeah, children keep respawning.
Okay, I need to drop. While we're talking about this, if you're watching this is kind of after the transition. Sorry, Matt, you're gonna have difficulty cutting this, but maybe you should put this at the beginning of the show. If you're watching this on the replay on YouTube, be sure to check out the the description, and in the description we'll have a little link that you can click. And if you click that link, you'll be zoomed straight to that part in the show covering the favorite headline that you wanted to cover. So that's the easiest way to kind of get around some of the meaningless banter if you don't like it. But we tried to cut it. Honestly, we tried to cut it out of a show before, and we got chastised for it. So we're continuing with the banter, and it's your fault.
Yeah, Ray and I made a conscious effort to shorten it up and tighten up the show and just really get to the news article. And we used to do it a little differently. We would hit the articles real quick, and then we would deep dive things. But people like the kind of deep dive after every article kind of thing. So yeah, we won't cut the banter. So if you do not like the banter, then just go ahead and you can skip ahead with those little clicks that Ray was talking about.
All right, so let's get into this. Soaring lumber prices. I didn't see any guesses. I can't give away any prizes this week. But soaring lumber prices add $36,000 to the cost of a new home. And a fierce land grab is only making it worse. So this article comes to us from CNBC. As the housing market gets leaner, potential buyers are turning to record numbers to new construction, but several factors are making the homes pricier than ever before. First is a major shift in the market's composition due to the record shortage of existing home sales. About 1 in 4 homes for sale are newly built. That's the highest ever. Historically, homes are about 1 in 10. So we're seeing a lot more people. I think it's not that the new construction supply is so high. It's that the resale supply is so low that's why 1 in 4 homes are newly built. Lumber prices seem to set a new record almost daily. It's now up 67% this year. And check out this percent. This is mind blowing. So I've got a whole bunch of projects around the house that I've just put on hold, because it costs an insane amount to do these simple projects. Like a lifting platform in my garage is 3 times the price. And I was like, it can't be 3 times the price. Here's the number. This year, it's up 340% from a year ago.
That's times.
Literally more than 3 times the price. It's about 3.5 times the price to build like a lifting platform in my garage. Lumber doesn't just go into framing a house. Those added costs hit cabinets, doors, windows, flooring, any of the wood stuff, and even packaging. Like wood has been used in packaging, in pallets, in roofs, and decking, and like there's so much that wood is involved with in the construction of a home. So it's gone up almost $36,000. The exact number is $35,872.
Yeah. What if you just wanted to put a covered patio on your backyard? Boom! Instead of $10,000, it's now $30,000.
I'm looking at alternative materials.
Yeah, so aluminum wood and whatnot.
Yeah, I thought about building like this little covered thing in my backyard, and it was going to be kind of off away from the house a little bit because we have a bigger backyard. So in kind of this little area, it's kind of a nice little green area, building a nice little covered area. And I said area like 5 times there. And I think I'm going to resort to using like old telephone poles for the post and find a bunch of bamboo and put the bamboo over the top of it for now. It'll kind of look like more like a hut type of open air thing, but it would provide the shade that I'm looking for without the cost of the lumber. So alternative materials, which, that was a big thing, but now metal is also 30%. The last time I checked.
Right. You can't get metal either.
So now some of the alternative materials are going up too. I think this is one of the reasons why we're seeing the surge in things like 3D printed homes and alternative materials like that too. The price of gypsum and drywall, by the way, is up 7%. So everyone was like, "Oh, well, drywall is going through the roof too." It's only up 7% by compare.
Yeah,
steel mill product prices are set a record high. It says up 18% in March year over year, but we saw a previous statistic that said, "Oh yeah, the price of copper set a record high, 27% higher year to date." So anyway, you can find more of these stats at CNBC. The title of the article again is "Soaring Lumber Prices at 36,000." If you just Google that, you'll find some of these other stats in there. That's a lot. So I think we'll probably have fewer and fewer people headed to like a custom build, in the middle range. I could definitely see them buying spec, but even that's more costly than it used to be. So I don't know. That's between a rock and a hard place. The guy at Lowe's who orders a lot of the lumber said that he doesn't see it going to recover for another 10 years or so. He said it's going to be at least 10 years before those prices start to go down and the materials are available to meet the demand that we have now.
Jeez.
And
Yeah, because it's not only just. Go ahead.
I was saying he's forecasting what they have to order for inventory. So,
yeah, because it's not just tariffs and all that stuff, but it's just the demand as well. And then they couldn't keep up because of the demand, and now they got to make more, and the cost is higher. I mean, they'll have to keep the price up so they can catch up with the demand, right?
Yep. Mario says the local Home Depot cost almost $10 for one piece of a 2x4.
That's
Pete Thorpe chiming in on his home improvement projects. And as much as a government program, what's that floor set? There's no going back. I built a 12x12 floating deck for a little under $400 at the start of the pandemic. Helped my neighbor build the same exact for a month ago for $945. Wow.
That's only 200% though, buddy. That's not that
you got a good deal, Pete.
That's a good deal.
Matthew Clinton, good joke. He said, someone said a 2x4 flew off of a truck and totaled their car, but instead of going to their insurance, they just sold the 2x4 and bought a new Lambo. Yeah, that's good. All right, so if you want to comment on any of that, just flash your mic. I'd love to kind of know what's going on around the country. If you don't want to comment on that one, no big deal. We got another one coming up. Let's see, Nico. Oh, Nico is on. He's in Clubhouse too at the same time. Oh, I see you, Krista. I'm going to come to you in just a second. Nico said, I make my own for sale post, almost cheaper than getting them pre-made, and I don't have to struggle to make them. Well, what about now though? Because I would think the plastic is almost cheaper.
The plastic ones, and I don't know if you can make your own with the plastic ones. I mean, I guess you could do something.
Oh, Krista. Is this you, Krista, that I don't want to talk about our whole home remodel that we just started? Okay, I'm going to come to you. Is that you? I think that's the same person. Okay.
Yeah, let's get her to talk about it. I feel like she needs to.
I want you to tell me about your whole home remodel. What's going on here? And tell us who you are and also what market you work in.
Hi, everyone. My name is Krista Nielsen. I am a realtor in Silicon Valley, California, the most expensive place to possibly do anything, including buying a home or building one. So I have to say we are doing a whole house remodel right now, and the lumber prices are going up so incredibly fast. We have our contractor quoting us one thing and giving us a 4-day turnaround on those prices. We're redoing our roof as well. Plywood, same thing. What would have been $10 at one point at Home Depot is now $56. So it is staggering and very, very painful, but there's no turning back.
Yeah, so you say no turning back. Do you think that prices on lumber is going to go down anytime soon? I don't really see a reprieve on the way.
I don't really see why they would put them back down unless the demand is so low that they're desperately needing to sell. But I can't imagine, especially in California and probably a lot of other areas where there's space to develop, why in the world they would reduce those prices again.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's kind of what I'm saying too. Nico, hey man, I saw you flashing your mic. Why are you building wood signs? Is it not cheaper to do plastic?
No, I like wood so much better. But actually, I have something similar going on, like Christina. But no, I like wood. The wood post is so much better than plastic. It looks better. I stain it. I make it look nice. But
yeah,
the Saturday before the Super Bowl, I had 2 pipes break in my house, one sewage and one water, causing a significant amount of damage. The contractor kept on, changing his estimate. Got to the point that now the insurance company has put me into a special investigation unit to investigate what's going on, with not realizing that the lumber prices are ridiculous.
Oh no, that's terrible. So we're still waiting on a half of a roof check that's supposed to be coming from our insurance company. So that's terrible. I'm sorry that you got put into the special investigation unit.
It could always be worse, Bernie. It's all good. So good.
That's funny. Okay, so Clayton, he said he can still buy a 2x4 for wait, where'd it go? Clayton said I can still buy a 2x4 for $265. Might only be 2 feet, but it's still much cheaper.
Yeah.
Michael Elizabeth Rodell, she said tile is up, windows are back ordered 3 months. Toilets are scarce. I'm about to just go find an abandoned home and take the materials from there. Someone said that they they thought about, instead of putting their home on the market, selling it for parts.
I'm just gonna part out my home.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So speaking of selling stuff for parts, that's usually what happens to bills as they get passed. What's going on with this Biden? Now, is this a bill or is this a proposal that they were just talking about when we talked about it 2 weeks ago? Do you remember? I don't remember.
It was a bill, and now they've unveiled the plan, I guess, behind it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to know what's in the bill, you got to pass it.
You got to pass it. Yeah, you can't read the whole bill unless you pass it, which is weird. Wait a second.
All right.
That's
So what's going on?
odd.
We talked at length about what we thought might actually happen. Were we right?
Well, this is a different part of it because this is the inherited real estate tax. So
Okay.
Biden's plan.
That's a music thing.
Yeah, this is just if, and I have a lot of questions about this one, so I really want to hear what's going on, from people on the YouTubes and the Clubhouse, because Biden's plan for inherited real estate may impact more people than just the wealthy. So you kind of automatically think, okay, well, yeah, if there's a tax for inheriting a home, I mean, think about it. If your family has lived in this home for 100 years and it just keeps getting handed on to the next generation, what if you've been hit really hard by the pandy? Or, I mean, you don't have a house payment, so it's you inherited that next one from the grandparents, and all of a sudden you have this huge tax bill, and you don't make that much money. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, right off the bat, my knee-jerk reaction was, dude, like, what are we doing here? But then I read the article, but I still have a lot of questions. So President Joe Biden has unveiled a plan for higher taxes on inherited homes to help fund the $1.8 trillion American Families Plan. We want to know what's in that one right there. The proposal would tax inherited property gains at death, targeting generational wealth transfers. But financial experts say the measure may impact more families than just affluent ones. This is a quote: "I think it could become a quagmire." Great word, by the way. It could become a quagmire from a couple different fronts, said certified financial planner Ken Van Leeuwen. He's the founder and managing director of Van Leeuwen and Company in Princeton, New Jersey. Currently, heirs may defer taxes on inherited home gains until they sell the property. So, like right there, what if they're never going to sell it? It just keeps getting passed down through the family. It's a family home. You don't have to worry about it. They also secure a so-called step up in basis, which adjusts the home's purchase price generally to the value on the date of death. According to the Joint Committee on Taxation, the current law saves taxpayers $41 billion per year. By comparison, Biden wants to treat home inheritances like a sale, making the heirs pay for gains that occurred before they received the property. This change may deliver a bill for capital gains taxes at death. The proposal includes tax exemptions. So here's where the tax exemptions go up. It includes tax exemptions up to $1 million for single heirs and up to $2.5 million for couples. So that's kind of saving grace right there, right?
Yeah. Are you talking about the saving grace being the value limit?
The $1 million exemptions, and then for single, and then $2.5 million for couples. So, for example, so let's say, sorry, go ahead.
In my market, that's a castle. So there's no adjustment for market.
Remember, at death they value the home.
Yeah, but there's no adjustment for what market you're in.
No, it's just $1 million or 2.5 for couples.
Like $1 million in what Chris does, Silicon Valley, Eureka. I know she's in Silicon Valley too. $1 million there is like a normal home.
But remember, it's in capital gains though. So if someone bought it for $800,000 and now it's worth over $1 million, there's not $1 million in equity there. There's not $1 million in gains there.
Oh, I see. So it's the gain from based on what they bought it for.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
So here's the breakdown. So let's say, for example, someone inherits a $1.5 million family home that was purchased for $300,000. That person may own capital gains taxes on $200,000. So you understand, right? So they're a single person someone bought it for $300,000. Now it's worth 1.5. They get the $1 million exception, and then there's still $200,000 left over. That's on that.
Yeah.
The difference between the gains and the exception. So, or the exemptions, I should say. So Van Leeuwen said that that levy may be a burden for heirs who want to keep the family home but can't afford the tax bill. So, so that's where I think they're putting a really big number on it with the million and the 2.5. But what about those homes though? Like, my dad bought a house in 1974 for 55 grand, and now it's worth $1.5 million. So if I inherit that home, there's some gains there, right? I'd be on the hook for essentially, let's just round it up, a $500,000 tax bill, right? Or taxes on that 500 grand.
You essentially have to sell.
Yeah, but then I'd have to pay it, then I don't know. Then what do I do? Do I use the capital gains exemption, the 250 grand? Because then I'm still paying taxes on another 250 grand. But it comes out of the sale. But I don't want to sell it. I want to keep that house forever. So that's where it kind of sucks.
Yeah. And when you do sell and you have to pay the taxes on it, it's going to remove money from whatever economy you're in and carry it straight to the Fed for you.
Well, yeah. And what if I was going to use that and
low tax?
I was going to refi and put it,
I'm more of a low tax guy. So
yeah.
I think it's better for that money to remain local and to travel around the economy. And somebody's like, sweet, Mamaw died, so now we have this huge house and we can sell it and do all this stuff with the money here locally. We could pay off this, pay off that, and do it. If we remove some of that money, then it limits what they can do with it, which goes into your local economy there. So I'm more about.
Or keep the house.
D. Jones says, explain this to me like I'm 5.
I read this article a few times this morning, by the way, to really understand it.
Dusty Martin says it's like the death tax all over again, solely responsible for the loss of my family's farms in Illinois.
Right.
It was that we settled and lived on for 100 years until the 1990s. Taxes were more than the farm produced.
Yeah. So my question is, like you were saying, keep it local. Even if we keep the family home, you could refi, and use some of that. Then that goes into home improvements on the home, which then boosts local builders, which, geez, maybe you want to start an organic farm. I don't know, anything like, it just seems like we're attacking the wrong people. We're already remember, we left England because of taxes, right? Like
taxation without representation, to be exact. We have representation. People are just voting for taxes lately.
Yeah, and it's just it's a lot. Like, and that's the thing, is this is a bill. So do we really vote on this? Are we really going to vote this thing through? Are people going to go, yeah, let's do that?
Currently they pretty much have control. So yeah, I think it probably will pass. I think it will pass. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I think so. So
yeah,
there's not a whole lot of comments on it. There is some. We're having a good discussion on the YouTube and Facebook. And Dusty, she says that exact policy decimated small family farms by millions for decades. And Debbie says farms are exempt. However, a relative can live in it. Why should investment not have a tax bill? FYI, California is reviewing this part. Interesting. Dusty says, exactly, Dan. My forefathers are probably spinning in their graves. So it's the old. This is kind of the first. Let's take a breath. This is the first normal economic tax or no tax debate that I feel like we've had in 6 years.
Yeah,
that's less about the person and more about the policy, which, I mean, I love that because I love me some Milton Friedman, right? I love that. I love the economic policy of being able to put more in the hands of the people and less to the government. I'm all about that. But there's some people that think, well, we got to pay the government for everything they produce and all that. I just think there's a tremendous amount of waste there. That's my personal opinion. But what fun to have a tax policy conversation that's not inundated with tweets and hate on one side or the other. That's kind of cool. Can we appreciate that? I think we can appreciate that. So that's nice. Melissa Mara says, I feel like I can't talk about taxes if I do more show Oh, if I do more
If she
short.
does more, yeah, she's in. Yeah,
It's
see, there
like
you go.
raining. It's like, by the way, it's raining. Tax me. So yeah, Jersey is famous for their rain tax. And that was on a previous episode.
That's pretty
Okay,
good.
so
Yeah, she lives in Jersey. They have a rain tax, and they also have where if you update your home, they reassess it, and then you get a higher tax bill. So why update your home, or why tell anyone that you're updating your home?
no. Yeah, that's the key. Why tell anyone? All right, let's talk about the rise in mortgage rates and what's happening to mortgage applications. So they dropped. So they fell 0.9% from the previous week, according to the latest
Fell.
report.
They stumbled. They slightly tripped. But like, remember, this is applications, right?
Yeah, this is overall application.
Right.
So this is interesting though. This is a quote from Joel Kahn. He's a mortgage banker's associate vice president of economic and industry forecasting. He says that the mortgage rates were slightly higher. Refinance applications were essentially unchanged. And purchase applications fell for the second straight week. Both conventional and governmental purchase applications declined, but average loan sizes increased for each loan type. This is a sign that there's a competitive purchase market driven by low housing inventory and high demand, and it's pushing prices higher and weighing down on activity. The higher prices are also affecting the mix of activity with stronger growth in purchase loans and larger than average balances. Then they get some details there, 30-year fixed and what it was. FHA mortgage applications decreased to 10% from 10.1% from 10.7%. Which that's all. And you can find more Housing Wire if you want to know the specifics of what loan types did what. But in general, we've been saying now, this is the second week that we've talked about the decrease in the purchase applications. And the economists who are seeing this decrease aren't saying it's because the buyers are leaving the market. It's because they're saying the buyers can't find stuff to buy. And so we're back to the original problem that we talked about weeks and weeks and weeks. I mean, probably a year ago. We talked about there being a lack of inventory due to the pandemic at the time. We had talked about the lack of inventory year prior to that. So 2 years ago, we were
The whole
already
show we've
starting
talked
to
about
see-
lack of inventory.
It's been a seller's market for the most part as we've been on
Yeah.
the show, and everyone's saying the buyer's market's coming, the buyer's market's coming, the buyer's market's coming.
Not
And I think
anymore.
we even said, hey, probably by 2021 it would be here. It is not here.
It's
And
not here.
definitely a seller's market. It's not.
We can admit that we were wrong.
Right. Unlike Susie. And I have to say, right, Susie Orman, if you haven't seen the Susie Orman versus Ray video, you got to see. That's what I should have titled it, Susie Orman versus Ray, but nobody knows who I am, so it wouldn't matter. Anyway, we as real estate agents need to start getting the word out. So it's not enough to tell sellers right now, hey, now's a great time to sell because prices are so high, you can make bank. Because what I'm seeing now is a high percentage of for sale by owners entering the market, pricing their home, stupid, unrealistic. And they're not like, there was one very close to my house, went on the market. It's $100,000 overpriced.
Jeez.
This is Arkansas.
That's a lot in Arkansas.
I can tell you, I am praying that they sell at that price, because if they do, I will be in a new home because that makes our house worth a whole lot more than I thought. So they're $100,000 overpriced. Went for sale by owner for a while. Then they finally listed with a discount broker, still at that $100,000 overpriced. I called the agent and said, hey, what kind of showings and activity are you getting? I live in the neighborhood, just kind of curious what's going on. And he was like, we've got some showings. I was like, oh, really? Do you have, how many offers do you have so far? He's like, well, none yet. Like, okay. He's like, do you want to see it? I was like, not at that price. No way.
Right.
But now if they had have listed their home, so this is an interesting experiment that I think we need to talk honestly with our clients about, because you know, we were really good at having these conversations 2 years ago. We talked about pricing your home at the likely sale price. And so we were all still having those conversations when the market took off, and all of a sudden you're getting offers and offers and offers. And what you thought was a likely sell price was $50,000 off or $100,000 off in some case. And they were going way over. And, you know, that was probably in the last 7-8 months. We see that more and more than we were last year, right? You would say so, Dan?
Absolutely. Yeah.
As agents, when we do a comparative market analysis, how hard do we normally look back? About 6 months.
6 months.
So if you're still adding on, you're doing a comparative market analysis for a client, you're giving it to them, and then you're saying, but we could probably list it higher and then get even more. It should probably you got to be careful because you're running up into this point now where you're using the data that's already inflated from the home purchases that have previously happened. And those are market numbers. Those homes sold and closed. And in some cases, they brought cash in order to make the appraisal difference. In some cases, you're still seeing some influx, and I'm just talking about my market specifically. But as an agent, if you're evaluating the market, you got to be careful and you got to look at the difference in list price and sell price ratio. You got to see what was happening to some of these homes that you're using as comparables for 6 months, because in that time period, the market's been nuts. So now if you continue to elevate that home price by telling your clients, oh yeah, we can totally get that because, I've had 5 or 6 homes sell $20,000 over market value in the last 6 months.
But it wasn't priced 20,000 over. It was priced right. And then it got 20 grand extra.
Right.
So you kind of have to, yeah.
Well, and now you might price it right and it sells at that price.
Right.
And you're like, well, why is that happening? Is the market slowing? No, it's not that the market's slowing. It's that our numbers are adjusting to the demand of the current market.
You got to remember, we're 12% higher than the 10% we were already up. So yeah, we're above where the 10% that was expected, and 10% was crazy, but now we're above that even, when things got crazy and things went up 10, 12% during the Rona. Now we're still up above that. And, I think it's very, very important what Ray's saying. Look at where the house was listed at, which is what I do. I see where they were listed. What did it go up to? Not what did it sell for? Because you got to remember, you can list something at 400 grand and get 480. Is it going to appraise at 480? You really want to be careful about the offers you're accepting, and also, where you're pricing that home, because you could miss it. And I keep saying, at any moment we're going to get to the buyer fatigue, and they're just going to stop at any moment. So you got to be careful how you're pricing a home.
Got a couple of funny comments.
I saw that one, but that's a good
says
one.
The suck it Susie, and then D Jones says, can you even wipe your booty with the CMA these days? So you can. I'll give a quick breakdown in just a second of how to do the comparative market analysis and get a much more accurate number than just a traditional CMA. So I'll do that in just a second. But Christina Nielsen, that she was just on Clubhouse.
Yeah,
she said our home is increasing so rapidly. A home closed last week is already 45 days old. Pricing strategy is huge too. We have to price 10% below anticipated sell price. So Silicon Valley, they're even pricing 10% below the sell price. And
which I think that's still pretty conservative. I think if they priced 20% low, they'd get back where they wanted to end up and go even higher than that.
Right.
I don't know what our average sale price is, but I'm assuming it's over $1 million or 1.5 or higher.
Okay, so here's a little gem for those of you listening on comparative market analysis and the way we run the CMA. Okay, so we do a comparative market analysis, which traditionally looks at the last 6 months of sell price, right? And we come up with a range based on the price per square foot and some adjustments that we make for condition, right? Does your listing have green shag carpet? Does it have granite countertops? That would be an interesting house. Total kitchen remodel, green shag carpets. And you make adjustments for those things, positives and negatives, slanted driveway, where it's located in the neighborhood, right? You do a traditional comparative market analysis with the adjustments. And you have a little range of, probably sell between this price and that price. Then you'll look at the competitive listing analysis. So you look at what's currently available on the market and say, okay, if our home in the current condition that it's in is listed today, what other properties were listed if everything's pending? Just kind of look at what's pending and under contract, and how would this property stack up against those properties? Because whenever you list a house in the neighborhood, you're either going to sell that house or someone else's. Right. So if you list it too high, you're going to sell other properties in the neighborhood because they're going to say, well, if that costs that much, look what I can get for this price. So you list it competitively, and that would help you start to zero in on a price range based on what is or was available recently. Then look at the absorption rate, right? So how fast are homes selling and how fast is the new inventory being absorbed on the market? So I like to look at the last 12 months, get a general absorption rate. And then I'll go back to 6 months and I'll look at each one of those months. How many homes were bought and sold that month? How many homes were bought and sold that month? How many homes were bought and sold that month? How much is still available currently? And that will show me an acceleration, or in some cases, a deceleration of how quickly homes are coming on the market, or how quickly the market is absorbing the additional inventory. And if you're in a market where you're still seeing a steep acceleration, then that range that you have based on what's currently available, you can price towards the top of that range. If you're in a market where you see a deceleration, meaning that as properties are coming on the market, they're not selling quite as quickly, you should price towards the middle or bottom of that price range in order to be competitive in the marketplace for what will be listed. In the same week you're talking to someone in that neighborhood, there's another agent talking to someone else. So that's kind of how you use the comparative market analysis, an absorption rate analysis, and we call it a competitive listing analysis, to maybe more accurately price a home when most agents are just looking at the last 6 months of sales and then saying, hey, put $50,000 on it and see if it'll sell. So it's just kind of general. If you want to be more accurate in your numbers, as Dee said, if you wanted to,
why don't you explain it to me like I'm 5?
That was pretty. If you go back and listen to it, it's pretty simple.
No, it's good. It's easy. Yeah, very simple. There's just a few extra steps that. And by the way, those are things I do. I couldn't put it in as detailed speech as you though. So that's the difference between Ray and I. I have no idea what I'm doing most days, but I do a really good job at it. I'm very good at not knowing what I'm doing, but Ray has it all calculated. I'm more, yeah.
Well, and one of the things I've noticed is that if we're not doing that and we accidentally price it too low, the appraiser is going to look at what the seller was willing to sell it for and what a buyer is willing to buy it for. That's part of the definition of value. And if the seller said, I was willing to sell this property for 500, but somebody wanted to buy it for 600, then the appraiser, I've heard 2 appraisers tell me that they take into account the initial list price. So if you're not doing the absorption rate, if you're not doing the proper analysis, if you're just guessing at what it might sell for, or if you're pricing too low, all of those could be an issue. So we just try to make our best effort at it. That's not an appraisal. This is not an appraisal. This is finding market value.
This is market value. Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, those are 2 totally different things, which that's another debate for another day. All right.
Yeah, or you could have an appraisal done on it, and then that could be wrong 30 days later when you actually get to the appraisal again.
I've had appraisers do 2 different appraisals, a difference of $30,000.
Right.
2 different appraisals. So don't tell me that appraisers are more accurate. You can't. I think they serve a purpose. They find a lendable value, but that's not an accurate market value.
Well, and then if you're talking about FHA and VA lender or appraisers, that's a different world. Yeah. So anyway, but we digress.
D says using all data points does help. There you go. All right.
So Ray, do you know that Zillow has clapped back against Rex
legally?
Yes. Legally, not just on Twitter, like legally.
I like the whole clapback comment thing, so I'm a fan of this.
No.
What happened? What happened, Dan? How did they do this?
By the way, in this thing, I hate to say it. I think I said it before, but I'll read the article. But I support Zillow here. Like,
yeah, this is kind of a weird position to be in.
It's really weird because we've knocked, and slighted Zillow for essentially 4 years. Now Ray has a different relationship, but still,
yeah,
when they're wrong, they're wrong.
I think there's a place for them in the market. That's me, Glenda
right?
Baker.
But when they've done things against their original model and change this and change that, then Ray has knocked them, sure. But
Yep.
we don't live in a world where you can see both sides of an issue anymore. So it's weird that Ray is like, no, I like him, but I don't like him now. Oh, but I like him again. That's okay. But anyway, by the way, Dusty, when you have, she has an example on the last story. Recent listing highest comp was 250. Owner wanted to list at 315. They rolled the dice and closed at 327. That's because no one lives in California anymore. And 327 grand to us is like nothing, because I don't have to deal with traffic anymore. Trader Joe's parking lots are open in and out. It never has a line anymore because everyone's moved to Arizona and Texas. All right. So if you guys don't know me, I'm a very, very sarcastic person. All right.
No.
But Zillow versus Rex, the saga continues. Dun, dun, dun. So I'm going to rip through this easily. Quickly. This is on Inman. If we have any comments or anything from Clubhouse or YouTube, that would be awesome. But if you don't, I would pay for Inman if I were you. It's a really awesome website and gets a lot of really, really good articles. But almost 2 months after discount
of the show, they're not a sponsor of the show yet.
No. I just like them. I was going to say something funny, but it may have been a slight at someone. I got to be careful because hate speech. Almost 2 months after discount real estate brokerage Rex filed an antitrust lawsuit against Zillow, which, by the way, we called just a shot at trying to be relevant and getting their name out there, I think is what I said anyway. The online giant has hit back, saying in a new filing Friday that the case has no merit. In the filing, which is technically an opposition motion to Rex's suit, Zillow says that Rex filed the suit because it was, quote unquote, unhappy with Zillow's independent decision to obtain faster and more reliable and better data for Zillow's consumers. It goes on to say Rex's proposed injunction creates a substantial risk that Zillow's online platforms would lose access to listings data in markets across the country. Zillow said in the new court documents, adding that it runs the risk that Zillow could lose access to the data entirely, irreparably damaging its business, which I don't think they need to fear Rex, but this is what they're responding with. So meanwhile, Rex's suit says that the company was founded to drastically reduce commissions, that Rex was reduced to do such. And one way it does that is to operate outside of multiple listing services. In other words, Rex wants to offer discount service, but believes NAR and Zillow are thwarting its efforts to do so.
So I've got a lot to say.
Yeah. John, do you want to go now or you want me to finish? I got another paragraph.
You go ahead and summarize it there.
All right.
Keep going.
So Zillow was dragged into the case thanks to a change in the way it gets listings as they recently switched to an IDX feed, which means they switched to a brokerage. And it reduced the number of data streams coming in. It used to be in the thousands. Now it's down to about 600 data streams. This switch means that Zillow is now bound by local MLS rules. Rex took issue with these changes, saying that they have resulted in its own listings losing significant traffic, according to its lawsuit. The company also believes the changes are severely impacting Rex's reputation, which they're not, its ability to execute its innovative and disruptive business model, and driving consumers away from Rex and back to the MLS regime, ensuring higher commissions that benefits NAR's members. So there's a lot to unpack on this one.
It's not innovative. Okay.
It's not innovative at all.
Okay. So
how many times, Ray, have you seen the sign that's stuck either in the ground or to the light post that says sell your house for 1% commission?
We buy houses. Okay. So here's my gripe. If you build a business on top of someone else's business that you don't control, you can't force that business to change on behalf of yours. For instance, for years, there are pallets of returned and used crap that these stores have that they don't know what to do with. And people will go and they'll buy these pallets of stuff and then they'll sell them on eBay. Okay. Did you know this? You could buy like a pallet and it's like a random pallet. It's kind of like, cracking packs if you were into Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or whatever. You never know what you're going to get. There's some rare stuff in there, some good stuff in there. And
or some people buy it from Sam's Club and then sell it on Amazon.
yeah, which I just got taken for. So you're building your business as an eBay reseller on the fact that these stores get all these returned goods. They don't know what to do with them and they don't really want to keep them. They can't return them to the manufacturer. So you buy it off of this person and then you sell it on eBay. And that's your business model. If this goes through, if the Rex versus Zillow goes through and they're like, yep, Rex is right. That means if one of those stores ever changed their policy on these returns, they're like, hey guys, you know what? We're not gonna do that anymore. We found a way to now go ahead and return these to the supplier. They're going to recycle them,
refurbish, whatever. Yeah.
Refurbish, give them to charity, whatever. If they do anything else besides what they were doing, these little eBay reseller guys can go, no. We built our business on the fact that we could buy these products from you and then sell them on eBay.
Yeah. So you can't change your business.
You can't change that and not allow us to do this. That's essentially what Rex is saying. No. We built our business on the fact that we could list our properties on Zillow and operate outside of MLSs in which we don't have to be a member so that we can.
You can't do that anymore.
We can't do that anymore. So now you can't change the way you operate your business because it impacts our business.
Which a business we started based on what you do, Zillow.
This is so shaky that it's not even, there's no legs here. So Zillow files the thing saying, I get rid of this lawsuit. It's frivolous.
Right. That's what they said. This is dumb. Just get rid of it.
And I don't see how somebody could actually, I mean, maybe they would say, no, it needs to go ahead and go to trial so there's precedent and this stuff won't happen again. But this happened all the time. People will build an app and then Apple or Google includes that new feature that someone built into the next OS update, and no one buys that app anymore. There's no lawsuit there. You built on someone else's platform. You built your business on someone else's platform. They changed the platform. It impacted your business. If you're not able to shift, or if you're not able to create your own platform, then you're toast. And it's famously being called Sherlocked because it was a wonderful app that I liked and I actually bought. It was called Sherlock. It was a computer search tool, and it could also be used on your phone. It was really, really good. And then, or maybe it was just on OS. But it was really good, and it would search all of your files and everything. Well, now if you're on a Mac, you just go up to the little thing and click button, the little magnifying glass. You can search your whole computer for all the files. It was originally an app called Sherlock that is being Sherlocked. There's in their business philosophy. I operate outside the MLS, so I'm going to charge cheaper commission so I don't have to be a member, and I'm also not going to give them the same service they would normally have. And we're going to go to all these other sites and post your house just like as if it was syndicated from an MLS feed. Well, if someone changes their business model, you have to have your own platform. You can't build it on your own platform like that, or on someone else's platform like that. Anyway.
Yeah. And by the way, there are, I think Truly and Redfin are they're in this lawsuit as well, but Zillow is obviously the big one.
Yeah, and the National Association of Realtors is included in the lawsuit, which makes the strange bedfellows with Zillow in some people's eyes. But I mean, they are following the MLS procedures and policies.
They're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're brokers now, so they have to, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. And you can't. They're essentially saying, we changed our business model, so shift or go away. But that's why I keep saying I think this is Rex's attempt to stay relevant, and then they're in the news because they're going after Zillow, and then people go, "What's Rex?" And then they go to the website, and then they can, they can't draw organically like Zillow. Again, it's weird to say this stuff, but they generated and built their platform to be different. Starting in 2007, I think they started Ray, and then eventually became the most visited real estate site on the planet. So,
Thorpe says what they were saying is the MLS is a monopoly and is forcing Zillow to put them on the other listings page. Yes, that is what they're saying, but they can join that monopoly. There's nothing stopping them from applying for membership and joining the MLS, and then they can put it all through. They can still offer discounts. They can do whatever they want as long as they're members, but you can't build, you can't rely. So basically what I'm wanting them to do is let me build my business on something that wasn't created by me or for me, but I want to build my business on that and then operate outside of it.
And do what I want to do. Yeah. And by the way, he said exactly what I was going to say Clayton did. Then they're held to a code of ethics, but they're not right now. Rex is not right now.
Yes.
This is essentially, all those little bottom feeders and parasites and things that hang around sharks just to get whatever's left over.
Matthew Clinton, for example, the Apple versus Epic Games trial going on as we speak. Yep. That's exactly it. Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead, Dan.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's all just the, anything that hangs around a shark to get their leftovers. If that shark goes vegan, all of a sudden they either need to go vegan too, or vegetarian, or, they're trying to latch on to what Zillow did. And then, but I got to go back to, I think you keyed in on it, Ray, but innovative and disruptive business model. And it's not either of those things. It's not. They have an instant offer thing, which Zillow already did, which we do. You just email me an offer and then I respond.
The thing that they're disrupting are the legal teams at all these firms that have to deal with the lawsuits. That's what they're disrupting.
And they're just spending money to spend money. I don't know. It's ridiculous to me. Let's put it under the frivolous category.
There you go. Hey, William, he joined Clubhouse. William Tong. If you're not following him, you guys gotta follow him. If you want to comment on the Rex versus Zillow thing specifically, go ahead and flash your mics or raise your hands. We'll put you up there, but we'll go ahead and move on to the next story, which should get a lot of discussion.
Yeah. So Ray, I don't believe in God, but I'm curious to know who does and how that affects my business and their business. And it's a protected thing if I'm talking about it, right?
Yeah. So you're in a rock and a hard place, I guess, because
Yeah.
religion is protected, but now we're talking about religious speech, and is that protected when it's against somebody else?
And
Dusty
is it
Martin,
hateful to talk if I just say I don't like that, is that hate speech? Like, remember when we started talking about that? This is that slippery slope, right?
Yeah. I want to get to Dusty Martin comments for just a second. She said, to be fair, Zillow hasn't been held to the COE either. Well, maybe they just joined. So I think a lot of that's got to work through their systems and processes. She said, what would have been fine for me is an email to Zillow with zero repercussions. Yeah. So they have kind of two separate entities that are operating, one associated with the Zillow as a broker and one Zillow
Just
as a search
Zillow.
portal.
Right.
I don't know how those are legally broken up, but that's going to have to be a big discussion. We have talked about that on the show. And what she's talking about there is that Zillow is sending out an email advertising that, hey, you should use a Zillow agent to people that already have representation. But
they're already under contract.
At the bottom, it always says, what? This is not a solicitation for business. That's what agents do all the time. I get them occasionally at my house. If you're being represented, it's not a solicitation, but you are.
Yeah. Well, like when I'm door knocking, I don't drop a flyer at the house that already has a sign in the front yard. But what if that house is listed without a sign? I have a little caveat at the bottom that says, hey, if you're already listed or under contract with someone, then this isn't a solicitation, blah, blah, blah.
But it is a solicitation.
No, it's saying it's not.
But it is one.
But it's not. If you already represented, it's not. If you're not represented, it is.
That's dumb rule. It's got to change. All right. So speaking of rules, we're going to get into some dicey conversation, and I want only thoughtful conversation around this topic. All right. So you've been warned. I'll kick you. All right. The religion is no safe harbor. NAR rules in a controversial. Religion is no safe harbor. NAR rules in a controversial hate speech policy. So there were several things whenever the code of ethics and some of the new rules being put in place that were discussed around that. And one of them was this 10-9, I think it is, or 10-5 standard of practice. It says realtors must not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, or slurs based on one's race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. After the policy was approved, NAR said the committee would help ethics hearings. But I think it means would hold ethics hearing panels and apply 10.5 to evaluate the complaints through the case interpretations. So there were a couple of complaints that they had leading up to these rules being put in place. So what they did was they said, okay, we're going to hold panels and say, if those complaints were held now, what would the rule be? So they offer specific factual circumstances and then a determination of whether the conduct was or was not a violation of the code of ethics. Thus far, NAR has been hesitant to respond to the member questions about the specific circumstances. For instance, one was using the term white privilege. Is that something that you can say or can't say? Is using a Confederate flag? Is that hate speech something you can or can't do? So case 10-9 spurred the most discussion. And this is a fictional case based on a real situation. Okay. And the fictional case, if you are a believer, has several errors, and it would make most believers aggravated that this example is being used. But at the same token, those who are believers would evaluate this fictional scenario and say, well, while I don't agree that this should be said in this way or like this, it's still nerve-wracking that a NAR policy might encroach on free speech or the practice of one's religion. Okay, so those are kind of how a believer is going to evaluate this. I think someone who's a non-believer is going to look at this and say, well, of course, this should not be protected. Okay.
Right.
So am I right about that, Dan? Is that a summary of, okay. All right. So that's a good summary of Dan's point of view on this. All right.
Yeah.
So this is the scenario that they set up. Realtor A was a preacher in his local church and stated before a group of congregants, lesbians and homosexuals are murderers according to the scriptures, quote unquote. One of the congregants filed an ethics complaint against Realtor A, alleging that this statement violates Article 10 as interpretation by the Standards of Practice 10-5. The complainant argued in his complaint that Realtor A's statement constituted hate speech. The local association's grievance committee reviewed the complaint and forwarded it to the hearing. So that's the premise that has been set up. At the hearing, the complainant argued that Realtor A's statement constituted hate speech because the remarks were objectively insulting and offensive, and because the speech was based on sexual orientation of protected class.
Okay.
All right.
But they're talking about scriptures that's not a current thing. He's just referencing, you could argue that he's just educating his, his contingent in there within the church, right?
Yep.
He's not saying, I believe this. He's just reading what it is to say this is what they were. I mean, I don't know.
So it's not. He's not reading it because it doesn't say that.
Okay.
And that's why a believer would look at this and say, well, it doesn't say this, so why would he say it? And I'll tell you the correct context in which this could be misinterpreted or moved from, and I'll kind of couch it in the context of a believer. And I think it will make more sense. But if you just take this one sentence and you say this sentence, which is his summary of a passage, then that's kind of what they're taking it. Okay. So Realtor A testified that his statement was based on an interpretation of the biblical scripture, and that his teachings were designed to help congregants understand the true teachings of God. The hearing panel found the Realtor A in violation of Article 10, noting that the complainant's testimony had provided clear, strong, and convincing proof that Realtor A's statement was intended to insult, offend, or intimidate, and was disparaging or abusive, as explained in the appendix, whatever of the manual. The complainant's testimony further provided clear and strong convincing proof that the alleged speech was based on the protected classes under Article 10, sexual orientation. Okay. So let me take on a couple of issues, I think, that would couch this and help. So people are like, well, that person believed that this was a scripturally justified statement. Okay. Some of the other stuff, as realtors who have a legal and ethical obligation to make sure the housing market is open for everyone, then this stuff should not be said. I'm summarizing a huge chunk of a quote. Another person said, we can't have a blanket exemption for if you quote this, you have no liability, or if you cite religion, then it suddenly gives you a safe harbor, no matter how offensive the language is. So and then they have comments from other people saying, this shouldn't be passed. Some people are saying this should totally be passed. Why are we defending this? Some people say we're not defending that. We're defending what could happen in the future. Okay. So let me put a caveat on the quote that is probably grossly misrepresented and out of context. In Christianity, they believe that sins across the board are the same. Okay. So in order for you to think in this way, then you would also have to think, well, in the belief of Christianity, then that is a sin. Homosexuality in most especially this context, they're believing that is a sin. Okay. So if they believe that's a sin, then they put all the sins on a equal playing field. Lying, it's as bad as murder. Adultery, it's as bad as stealing something, right?
A sin is a sin, right?
Yeah, sin is a sin. And the reason why is because they believe that creates a division between you and a more perfect being, God. Any type of sin creates the division. And no matter how big that division is, a little sin creates that division, right? So in this context, if a preacher, using their example, is saying, what's the quote that they used that was, they're murderers according to the scriptures, that it doesn't say that. And I was looking at,
so that's why the believers are going, whoa, no.
Yeah, that's why a lot of believers think
about this example.
I don't think it doesn't say that.
Right.
So now you have, well, someone is misinterpreting what it actually says. Should they be held to this? So I personally think religion should not be a safe harbor for hate speech, because I don't see a lot of what I believe as hate. And as a matter of fact, it's love, and love is supposed to trump everything.
Right.
And even if there is something in scriptures, when you study this stuff, you figure out the love portion in there. And I think if people focus on the love and how to share the love and what the purpose of something like this is, realizing that sin separates you from God is supposed to help you then come closer to God and be one of love. And I think the best example of this is Penn. Is it Penn Jillette?
Penn Jillette, yeah.
So Penn Jillette's an atheist.
He's an
And
atheist.
And a really good magician. Penn and Teller is who I'm talking
Well,
about here.
the atheism makes him a good magician.
Right. well, that's because it's all magic, right? So, and I know we're probably losing some followers and stuff, but I think it's important to put this stuff in context. Okay, so bear with
100%.
me here. But Penn Jillette's an atheist, and he said, if you are a believer and you really believe that Penn dies and he is going to go to hell because he's not a believer, and you don't share that with him, then that is more hateful than sharing with him your difference. That you would actually show love in saying, hey, Penn, I don't want you to go to hell. Here's a way to not. And by you sharing that, it is love. And he said that. I'm misquoting him, or, I'm paraphrasing what he said. But that's kind of what has a lot of people worried, which you said you've been kind of saying throughout the show, Dan. If I disagree with them, if I say I don't like that, if I say I don't like this religion or I don't believe that religion, am I now in trouble? If I say I don't like this, is that hate speech? And I think it's all about how it's said. Because if this statement was actually put in context and was, I mean, he shouldn't have said it like that because it's what it says. But if this statement was actually put in a broader context and you could see kind of what he was saying through the sentence that he's saying here, which is, it's terrible and it's not right, then I think more would understand the love side of that and not. So I think when practiced well, Christianity, in which the country was founded on, would not be subjected to 10-5.
I know,
So,
but that's where it gets... Okay, what was their point of view? What were they trying to do? Because, so, not to jump onto my beliefs versus your beliefs thing, but my biggest issue, well, one of my biggest issues with religion is that it's always, if I don't believe, then there's something wrong with me, right? So, but kind of how Ray said is, if you're a believer and you don't just let me know, then that's kind of on you. And then I get to make my own decision. But if you've let me know and you've done your job and say, hey, there's this wonderful world based on these scriptures and based on these writings that you can really learn a lot about, and then I choose not to do that, then that's one thing. But when you constantly try to force it down my throat and say, this is the only way, and then you get into the whole, what is a sin, what isn't a sin thing, and then pushing those beliefs on people that they believe are sinners, that's where it just goes down. It goes too far for me. And, let me know about it. This is what I've said to my relatives for my entire life. Let me know your point of view. Let me know. I want to hear. And this is what I tell my daughters. You learn everything you can about everything you want, and then you make your decision. You don't have to make it at 11 years old. You can make it at 25. You can make it when you're 30 and you understand who you are and where your beliefs take you. But you don't have to believe what I believe. You don't have to believe what your mom believes or your grandparents believe. You don't. You can believe whatever you want to believe. But that's where it gets to, to bring it back on topic, to where it's going to get really slippery, is that if I just walk up to someone and said, hey, I believe this and I think you would benefit from it, can that be hate speech?
Yeah. And that's where
I think it gets really slippery.
A non-believer's concern should be, if I say I don't like that religion,
that's where I'm at, because I say that all the time.
Is that hate speech?
If
you say I don't like religion as a whole, is that hate speech? And so that's where, and I think I agree with Dominique Cardone, who, I don't know who this is. It's just a committee member. I don't really agree with this amendment that they suggested, but they suggested an amendment that says, instead of, it says stated before a group of congregants, to state it on social media, meaning more public, then that would be a definite yes. But he says, or she, Dominique, maybe she, I think it's this is a quote, I think it's just a little, I don't know, too strident for us to give the impression that we're criticizing a preacher's speech from the pulpit, Cardone said. though he admitted that a preacher's speech from the pulpit could, in fact, give rise to a violation of 10.5 policy.
But not okay, but that's the thing. That's the same thing as banning Trump from Twitter. Like if you're saying a bunch of hateful stuff anywhere, you know, we still have the freedom of speech thing, but you're punishing people for what could happen.
Yeah.
Like, but did it happen, and did I have a part in that? You know, and by the way,
was there any, because of his speech, did he treat someone different? Was there
any ill will behind what he was saying? Now, Trump's this whole thing. I don't want to go that route, but like, was there any ill will behind what guy was saying from the pulpit? And I want to go to Colin's comment. Sadly, we live in a world where agents are not allowed to have a public opinion. Now, I want to go back to I don't know what other topics we've talked about, but in how it should be is if I own a local business and it's whatever, I sell bagels, and I put a sign out there that says, no, whatever, this person allowed, no, this religion allowed, no shoes, no shirts, and people choose to not go to my business, I'm going to suffer for my beliefs. And that's them voting with their wallet. These big, national sweeping changes trying to govern however many realtors there are in the country, it's going to go horribly wrong, because there's going to be one case that wasn't that at all, and it's going to go horribly wrong. Instead, if I'm walking down the street and I see a realtor sign up and it says something offensive, well, I'm going to report that guy, or I'm going to not use that realtor as a consumer. And then it seems way overarching to me.
The reality of it is that we can't get consumers to make complaints about legit shady stuff going on.
Right.
But this type of like cancel culture is like the only thing that we could probably get them to make a complaint on.
But when I go to Del Taco and they forget my sauce packets, Yelp review.
I had a client tell me how grossly mistreated they were by the previous agent, and how they wouldn't show them certain properties because the agent was like, "Oh, that's not enough commission for me. You have to find somebody else." And like they were telling me all these different ethics violations and stuff that the person was making. I was like, "This is not right. Can you please complain?" They're like, "Oh, I don't want to stir anything up."
Right.
But this type of thing, somebody says something a little shady on, or what could be misconstrued as shady by someone else, and it's going to get all the complaints. So, all right. So, and D Jones says it's always us that report us. Yeah, but we can't, as far as I know, I think the injured party has to be the one to complain. Like, I can't complain because I heard this person say that they were mistreated like this from this other agent. It's got to be that person that was actually mistreated. So I would love to get out some of that stuff. All right. So back on the topic, I do want to bring up what, oh wait, go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, can you go to Clayton's comment?
Yes. Yeah. Clayton says, we talked about this stuff being an issue. Who determines hate speech? If you read their examples, and we all agreed it's bad, but Trump 2020 was considered hate speech by some. Yeah.
And then go to his next one. It's his most recent. On the other side, that one.
On the other side, don't you want to know who you're working with? Don't you want them to be open so that you could choose to do business with them or not? Yes.
So here's the thing, is I have a lot of clients that are very, very devout believers. I got into a group of people that I love. They're amazing people, and we have amazing conversations about their beliefs versus mine. And I've helped their family, their friends, and everything. So they know who I am. They know what I believe or don't believe, but I'm also open. I think it's openness. I'm open to their points of view. They're not going to change me. You're not going to change my points of view, but I'm down to have some conversations. So, but that's kind of, just I hooked up with some people and started working with them, some friends, and started working with them, and then that opened me to that world. I mean, I helped someone who's an actual pastor and has his own church help them sell and then buy a house, and I believe differently than they do. Now, we didn't really talk about much unless it kind of came up, but like, I don't know, the whole put it out there and then choose to work with you or not. But again, it kind of goes to, hey, Clayton put it out there, and then people don't want to work with them, and he's fine with that.
Here's the other side of that. Here's the other side of that coin, maybe from a minority perspective, which I'm not great at because I'm obviously not a minority as a pasty white male. But here's my best attempt. Let's say there was a bunch of agents that they don't want to work with women for whatever reason, right? Well, the fear of the minority in that situation, by having some put out, I don't want to work with women, and here's all the reasons why, then you could have other people see that and say, hey, you know what? That's right. Hey, you know what? That's right. Hey, so it's actually spreading a message that then in turn impacts a minority from a majority standpoint of power. Now, currently, a lot of the hate stuff in our country is a minor issue, but it wasn't always that way. Used to be a majority of the people were, they had slaves and all this other stuff was happening, right? So that's the other side of that coin, because I've thought that too. Like, well, I would rather know that that person hates, someone like me. That way I can choose not to use them. But at the
Right.
same time, they got that banner up and they are creating a movement themselves and being a part of a movement that is disparaging another minority population or even a majority population. So that's the danger of hate speech, is that it becomes a rallying point for others, which
I get that, but is what this dude said on the pulpit hate speech?
Yeah, that's so. To go back to the article, and they said another committee member, Rick Fioretti, Rick Fioretti.
We know that guy.
Reminds me of Guy. So another committee member, Rick Fioretti, wondered if quoting directly from scriptures without offering an interpretation could possibly run afoul of 10-5. Other committee members pointed out case interpretation specifically says his statement was based on interpretation of biblical scripture. Because religion is not a safe harbor, is it possible that somebody reading from a scripture word for word is otherwise rose to the level of harassing speech, hate speech, epithet slurs, could be a violation of
that is 10. The perfect question right there.
Well, let me just take the word Bible out of it. Okay. Classic literature, early American novels have hate speech all through it.
Yeah. What if I'm just reading to my Facebook group?
Then, what is that? And those books aren't quote unquote banned, right? We don't really ban books. So
we burn them. We don't ban them.
Yeah. Stark invited meeting attendees to change the term homosexual to any other protected class, like preacher, imam, rabbi, priest. And I have to say, there are some religions that have some pretty hateful stuff in whatever they have as a scripture, that if you were to read that in America, you would see that as, we don't do that. That's hate speech. You can't treat your wife like that. You can't treat other people like that. So there are some religions with stuff. So you can't just say, well, Christianity doesn't really have that in there, so we can just make that a rule. But there are some religions that have that stuff in there. So
we don't only have Christianity here.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why it's got to just,
you have to explore. You have to explore that and say, well, what is the logical extent of this proposal?
That's why I would say, you got to go back to just individual cases. Either let the people rule with their wallets, or if something. So I do get your point though. So if I say something super duper hateful and no one reports me, I'm just going to keep going. Yeah, I get that. So I get that, but it's just, this is so, if you want to go to Colin's comment, there are 1.5 million agents. That's a 0.5% of the total U.S. population that NAR is trying to control opinions and actions of. But in NAR's defense, like they govern us. So I get it, but I don't know. This is.
Matt says it's similar conflict to the marketplace of ideas theory, where it's bad to shut down BS publications like tabloids, because when you remove the crap, it's harder to tell fact from fake. Yeah, I've heard the marketplace of ideas, the ideas that are true should win and will win over time.
But they're not winning right now. That's the thing is, all those things that you see checking out the superstore or the whatever, the supermarket, people are going, oh, really? Brad Pitt is an alien? That's awesome.
Okay. Speaking of probes, we have one breaking news situation that I think we should cover. Maybe we should just jump straight to that and skip the other two. We could hold them for another deeper discussion in another day. But do you want to cover that breaking news story about the eviction moratorium real quick?
Yeah, and I sent it to our little, let's see, where is it? Yeah. So I was hoping that it would get added, but that didn't happen.
Hey, Julie Moon, I see you in the clubhouse. We were talking about you earlier.
She wants to yell at us.
Christina,
and by the way,
Smallhorn is here too, by the way.
Yeah, she checked in. I don't know if we mentioned tiny houses or new construction. Oh, we mentioned new construction.
Yeah, I mentioned the 3D print houses, and then there she was. So
yeah, she's always lurking, just like Norm. Norm's here somewhere. All right. So federal. This is from CNBC. It literally posted a few minutes before the show. Because Ray said something about on Clubhouse when we were doing the pre-production stuff, and Ray mentioned, "Hey, we're checking up to 5 minutes before." So I'm like, I'm gonna go check. And then CNBC has federal judge overturns national eviction ban. So I'm just going to read the key points and then we can chat about it. If you want to see it again, it's over on CNBC. But a federal judge struck down on Wednesday the national eviction moratorium, potentially leaving millions of Americans at risk of losing their homes. That's scary, right? Housing advocates have said that the national ban is necessary to stave off an unprecedented displacement of Americans, which could worsen the Rona Pandy, just as, it says both words, by the way, the Rona Pandy, just as the country is turning a corner. But property owners have criticized the policy and say landlords can't afford to continue housing people for free. So, like I said, Ray, I don't know if you want to touch on that, but if you want that, that's CNBC.
It
and
is
there's
really
Norm, by the way. Boom.
Norm, yeah, there's Norm. Norm's checking in. He says,
yeah.
I am. Julie Moon, she's saying, ha ha.
So, okay, so we've talked about this on the show before, but it's always been, hey, it's in the moratorium's in place. What would it be like if it were not in place? Now it's been stricken down. So what happens?
So I think it doesn't it leave it to the states to decide now what's going on?
Yeah. Here, you start venting and I'll go. Stretch.
Well, it's been an issue because we had a couple of deals that were under contract in which now you have investors that want to sell their property and yet they have a tenant in the property. And even if the tenant's like, yeah, we'll leave, no problem. With the eviction moratorium, if they decided to stay, there's not really much you could do. And I don't even know what the legality would be if the buyer just decided to move on top of them, which is what my buyer was like, hey, if they don't want to leave, we're going to be living together. No big deal. Now, luckily, our person went ahead and left. I don't even know if they knew they could stay and not pay and see if they could get through the moratorium or not. But that's where I saw the issue as a real estate agent. What's going to happen with some of these properties that were on the market that had a tenant inside and then a new owner closed? Can they be evicted in that situation?
No, they cannot. I have one of those listings. They cannot.
Well, could there be a situation in which you have a buyer that does an early occupancy and then does not close on the home, and now they're living in that house as an early occupant, non-homeowner, lease agreement? Can they be evicted? And so there was all these questions around the eviction moratorium, the practical application of that through real estate sales, that if it's not a federal issue anymore, then I think maybe that's going to be a big relief to a lot of investors that want to offload their properties, which just got a call again this week from one. So I know Dan, sorry, Dan's resetting his camera.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to talk.
Whenever we're soloed on Ray, I sneak up and do it. But so just researchers have found that allowing evictions to continue in certain states caused as many as 433,000 excess cases of the Rona and 10,000, almost 11,000 additional deaths. Now, I don't know how they quantify that. How do they track? Okay, you got evicted and now you died from the Rona. How do they track that? I mean, I guess they can look for hot spots that spread because of these evictions. But all right, so keep going because I'm gonna keep reading here.
No, that's all I got. Colin said, I literally wrote into a buyer offer that the settlement would not occur unless the renters vacated 3 days prior to settlement. And so I put one in there that we had to have a letter from the tenants saying that they would vacate the property. And I don't even know if it's like a legal thing, but my buyer was like, I just want a letter from them saying that they'll leave. And I'm down. I'm fine with that. And so that's what we got. And the buyer was satisfied with it and they actually did leave. But I like the way you did it, Colin. Withhold the money from the seller until the buyers or until the tenants are gone. That's probably the best practice.
He's a smart kid.
That Colin J.J. Cameron.
So, yeah, White House is reviewing the decision. So housing advocates called on the Department of Justice to quickly appeal the ruling and the Biden administration to continue to enforce the moratorium. Because remember,
housing advocates? That wouldn't be a housing advocate. That would be a renter advocate, a free stay advocate. How's that? It's not for housing. That's a terrible decision for housing. but I see what
I know. What the thing I've questioned though is like if they are suffering because of the Rona, yes, sure. But what if you weren't paying rent before the Rona and now you're like, cool, I just got a year free? Like, you know, you're just some freeloading millennial. Oh, sorry, guy, that's hate speech.
That's hate speech.
I'm just kidding. But like, I don't know. There's just it can't be this blanket thing. Because remember, it was supposed to end in January, then it got extended to April, and now through June.
Yeah. We'll have to also start noting on our show whenever we're joking, we're satirical.
Yeah. Because my sarcasm is so deep state, like deep fake, you can't even tell. So I need to mention when I'm doing. So there's not really a resolution, but it has been stricken down, and free housing advocates are.
Yeah, there you go. Free housing advocates.
They're challenging and saying the White House must react. So there you go. That's breaking news here on the Bearded Man of Real Estate show.
Well, interesting show. Thanks everyone for hanging with us. I know we got dicey a couple of times in there. It's just a lot to talk about today, but I appreciate all the comments, especially the YouTube and Facebook comments. Thank you guys for joining us there. Thank you, Clubhouse, for joining us. What are you laughing about?
I get these texts. So I have clients, you know, a new set of clients, and they have a very hefty budget, but it's still very, very challenging. It's not different in luxury, but they sent me the address. Then she goes, seems like it's been on the market for all of 8 minutes. Like we better react.
We better go fast. Speaking of go fast, I gotta get out of here. Dan, tell everybody where they can find you.
D Ludwig Rocks, DLUDWIGROCKS. And by the way, if you are struggling, you can reach out to someone's there that cares and wants to help you. And if you're not struggling, if you're having a great time and you're feeling great, reach out to people and say hi and make sure they're doing okay.
And report a local realtor today. You can find me at Ray Zorback, RAYZORBACK, usually on Instagram. So look at me there, and I'll see you guys next time.
Dicey and spicy. Woo!